Good evening, everybody. It is a beautiful Tuesday, July the 5th, 2022. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Our invocation this evening will be given by Pastor Eric Jarvis of the First Assembly of God. And good evening, Pastor Jarvis.
Lord, we have just finished celebrating a great weekend of the birthday of our nation. And we're thankful for this country that we live in. Your word says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. More than making a declaration that our nation is yours, Lord, it is the clarion call that we would make it so. And that, Lord, your continued blessing would be on us. Lord, evidence throughout the whole earth. We see many things in this country that evidence your blessing and your graciousness and your goodness. May we never forget your providence to us and always be thankful. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And now if you're able to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Jeff Arnold.
Here.
Wendy Onuki. Here. Joe Reeser.
Here.
Steve Schlock.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Scott Smith.
Here. That takes us to the approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's approved. That takes us to our update from our Van Buren County Commissioner, Ms. Gail Patterson-Gladney. Good evening, Commissioner Gladney.
Good evening, Mayor and council people. Thank you for your time. I wanted to say that the broadband mapping is complete. DCS
Nice.
Technology will present their report on July 26th, and you can join in the committee of the whole meeting online. So if you wanted to listen to that portion, you can. And also, we record the sessions. The committee of the whole now meets at 1 o'clock. So we have changed our format somewhat. There's also a press release on our website, and I gave your city manager, Kate Hosier, information from that website. The Juneteenth holiday for the county was approved for 2022 only, so now it's going to be reviewed again in union negotiations. The 2021-2022 HMEP Hazardous Materials Emergency Planning Grant was approved for submission, and claims in the amount of over $5,006,000 were approved. The Bangor Train Depot, that's owned by the city, and so they requested that we help out with the improvements that are needed at the Bangor Amtrak Train Depot. The total amount of the project is $64,900. Before we approved it, I had asked if Bangor could also help out, and so they were able to contribute $20,000. So that's great. The board has approved the request for use of the paid parking area at the former Health Department building adjacent to the fairgrounds in Hartford for the Van Buren County Youth Fair, July 18th through July 23rd, and that was approved. And the Van Buren County Board of Commissioners terminated the Palisades Recovery Plan Agreement with Connexus Group, utilizing the 30-day out clause effective immediately with a final term date of July 12, 2022. We will be considering if Market Van Buren is going to help us out with the Palisades Recovery meeting that we're going to have, and some other issues that we would like them possibly to take over, or another group. So we are going to be looking at that. The board approved the signing of the agreement for the previously approved ARPA funds granted to South Haven Area Water and Sewer Authority, SHASA, for the lead service replacement. That was $480,468.75. And I will apologize on behalf of the county. because when we changed county administrators, the agreement sort of got pushed back, and so we were able to finally approve that. And then the last item is the Sheriff's Office list of abandoned and unused owned items were approved to be auctioned through Bitergy. And I don't know if you know about Bitergy or if you've used that, but that's one way that we use to get rid of our items and sell them. Are there any questions? No?
Any questions?
Okay.
Does look
Thank you
like-
for your time.
Thank you, Gail. Appreciate it. Have a great night. All right, that takes us to the consent agenda, items A through E.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just had a question about one of them, if that's okay.
Want it pulled or?
Is it okay to just ask a question without
Yes.
it's not changing any of the information? But I was just wondering, and had also received an email about Dave Miller, and was just wondering why his appointment lapsed.
When we reappoint people to the boards, we let them know a couple months in advance to put in a new application, to renew their old application. I think there was some confusion on Mr. Miller's part on that. So he did not realize that he was off the board because he never put in an application to be reappointed.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. That was it.
Okay. We had a motion, we had a second. This is a roll call vote.
Arnold,
Yes.
Onuki,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlock,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. That takes us to new business. City Council will be asked to consider the approval of special event application 2022-17, which is the Alvan's Barbecue, to be held at the Huron Street Pavilion on Friday, August the 12th, 2022, from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m.
Make a motion to approve special event 2022-17, the Alvan's Barbecue.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second, and anybody here to speak?
I'm not sure if they're here to speak, but besides having one of the best names for a special event.
It is good, I know. You can-
This one will be during the Blueberry Festival. It will be August 12th from 4 to 8. They will be serving dinner of pulled pork, baked beans, chips, and ice cream, and of course, blueberries. And this is a fundraiser for Alvan, which is our local no-kill shelter.
No hot dogs?
No.
Work with me. Okay. Yeah, it's a great event and good cause. So, public questions on this? Other than hot dogs? No. Council questions? Nothing. We got a motion, and a second to approve the Alvan's Barbecue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? It's approved. All right, City Council, we asked to consider the approval of a quote received from Basics Concepts, Inc. for a containment pit on 12th Avenue substations in the amount of $23,987 and authorizing staff to execute the necessary documents.
Make a motion to approve the quote received from Basics Concepts for a containment pit on the 12th Avenue substation.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Bill Hunter is here to tell us all about it. Good evening, Bill.
Thank you, Your Honor, City Council. This is a part of actually the bigger construction of the 12th Avenue substation. Our engineers, GRP, they discovered actually that it would be actually cheaper for us to go under contract directly with Basic Concepts with a potential of saving upwards near to 15 to 18,000 going directly with them instead vice versus going through the contract. Reason being is the contractor themselves is electrical contractor, so them getting involved in something like this, it's not their forte, so they kind of intentionally, I believe, make their estimates a little higher because they just don't want to deal with it. They just deal with wire transformers, so it made sense. We have a savings in it. The system itself is designed to go under transformer pads and such as to catch hydrocarbons that might shed actually off any of the equipment we have. In addition, it allows water to flow across. So it's not restricting any of the water, but it actually is containing they used to have different systems for it. But this is a more unique, allowing more of a free flow of water, still trapping actually the hydrocarbons. So I'm here to answer any questions the council may have on this quote.
Any council questions? No? How about any public questions? All right, looks like it's all clear. All right, so we've got a motion and a second to approve that bid from Basic Concepts. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. And next, while you're still up here, City Council will be asked to consider the approval of a bid received from Newkirk Electric for the construction of the 12th Avenue substation in the amount of $2,204,167 and authorizing staff to execute the necessary documents.
Make a motion to approve the bid received from Newkirk Electric for the construction of the 12th Avenue substation.
Second.
Motion second. Bill, one more time.
Thank you, Your Honor, City Council. I've been in front of City Council numerous times already, and that was just to buy the equipment. What we do in electric projects within the city, and many electrical municipalities do it this way. We buy the equipment, then we hire somebody to actually put everything together. This is the company that's going to put everything together. They're taking all the material that we've been purchasing, and they're going to build the substation. And this is the cost of that. The bids came in really close, as you can see from the bid tabulation. We were actually anticipating that there'd be a wider spread. I mean, there was from the highest bid, but we actually see from Kent and Newkirk, which Kent has done quite a few of our projects already. Newkirk actually just came in a little lower. So again, this is the contractor that will be building it, and just in front of City Council was, of course, the subcontractor for just the containment system. So I'm here to answer any questions City Council may have on this.
How about just a timeline? Just what's your timeline on this?
We still have to do one review, actually, with the Planning Commission with South Haven Township. But afterwards, as soon as we get contracts awarded, we're hoping actually to start breaking ground actually this fall and then finishing it up in the spring of next year.
Okay. Sounds good. Go ahead.
Because this is close to Deer Lick Creek, were there any special, like, environmental considerations that will need to be taken?
We already did an environmental assessment. In your bid packet actually is the site plan, and if you zoom into that, you can actually see there's two red lines. But in the background of it, you see the little dots and the little hash marks. Those are actually wetland areas that were delineated out. So we took the time actually to in the process is to identify the wetland areas, the sensitive areas, and we're designing actually around those areas. So to answer your question, it shouldn't have any effect on that at all, but we did do our due diligence of identifying actually wetland areas.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any question? If not, any public questions on this one? All right, looks like we're in the clear. And if we're all good up here, we've got a motion and a second to approve that bid from Newkirk Electric. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Go to work. All right, next, City Council will be asked to consider the approval of the installation of life jacket loaner stations on the north and south beaches and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the donation agreement.
Make a motion to approve the installation of a life jacket loaner station on the north and south beaches and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the donation agreement.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. And Bill, because you're on Parks, you get this one too. All right, you're popular tonight.
Yes, Your Honor. This was recently the last meeting with the Parks Commission. This went in front of the Parks Commission. The Parks Commission did a review of the agreement as well as the location of both of these, the North Beach and South Beach. Just a little background, Safe Kids of South Haven, which is led by the Bronson South Haven Hospital. Safe Kids Worldwide is a nonprofit organization, and it was founded actually by a Dr. Ecklenberger, maybe I might have just massacred that name. If I did, my apologies to any of his relatives out there. But since he's actually founded this national organization, I found this online. He said that they've actually dropped unintentional injuries of kids by 61%. So you can actually see in your first page is what the life jacket will look like. That first picture right there, that's what that'll look like. There'll be jackets hanging, little instructions for the kids. They'll hold, I believe, 45. And with the agreement in front of City Council, the SKGSH will be maintaining these at least 3 times a month. South Haven Emergency Services did volunteer their interns when they're out checking the beaches and then changing the flags, that they'll keep an eye on these. So if they actually notice like a drop or some of them missing, they'll coordinate with them and get these replaced. So I think it's a pretty simple agreement, and I think it's a pretty good thing. And I'm here to answer any questions actually the council may have on this.
Any council questions? No. Public questions? It's very quiet. Well, I'll just say, I mean, it is a nice concept to have the availability of life jackets in case you show up and your kid's unable to swim, and hopefully it'll just encourage folks. We got a splash pad, a lot of warning systems, flags. It's just one more tool that hopefully keeps people safe at all times. So on that note, I'll just say I'm thankful that we're going to have them. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the installation of a life jacket loaner station. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. City Council next will be asked to consider the approval of a proposal for $28,350 from Edgewater Resources as the consulting firm to assist in creating the new Parks Master Plan and authorizing staff to execute the necessary documents.
Thank you, Your Honor. City Council. This was recently presented in front of the Parks Commission on June 14th of 2022. Our current actually Parks Master Plan expires in 2023, so we would like to get this underway this season, starting up, and have it actually finished prior to, because it actually expires 2023 in December. We'd like to get it done way before that, so that's why we're starting the process now with City Council, getting that a consultant on board and start the public outreach process. Vision something similar to what we did in the past already with Monroe Bluff, with the South Beach Master Plan that we did. This will be the same kind of, and Edgewater has done both of those, and they've done a tremendous job. I love their outreach, and especially recently what they just did actually with Kids Corners. So, and Susie will be our point of contact right there, and she's been great to work with, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal for $28,350 from Edgewater Resources as a consulting firm to assist in creating the new Parks Master Plan.
I'll second.
Perfect. All right. So I think we're all familiar with Edgewater. They do fantastic work. So I would agree with that. Any council questions on this?
Bill, how often is the Parks Master Plan updated?
It's supposed to be done regular, actually, every 5 years.
5 years, okay.
And especially now with the state of Michigan. Recently, the state of Michigan is now requiring, before you just had municipalities that were on top of it, they would update it pretty regularly. Other ones would go 10 years. Now, for us to even qualify for any grants with the state of Michigan, we have to have an updated Parks Master Plan, and there's no exceptions. So not having this done would actually negate us from applying for any future funds through the state of Michigan, especially with our park system.
Good question. Any other questions of this group? And if not, any public questions on the Parks Master Plan? If so, just come on up, state your name and address.
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. So if this was just presented in June, is it part of the fiscal year budget, or does it need to be added to the budget? How is the cost going to be covered?
It's in there.
This will actually be covered in this fiscal year coming up in July. It was budgeted for this fiscal year we just started.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Nothing. All right. We've got a motion, a second, to get going on that master plan for the parks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Get going. Thanks, Bill. And, all right. Next, City Council will be asked to take the following actions to advance the fiscal year priority number 3, which is organizational improvement. And first, we're going to authorize the city manager to execute a project proposal from Williamson Works for the recodification of the city zoning ordinance in the amount of $52,375. Would you like these together or separate? I can, do them all at once if you want.
Sure.
Let's do it. And then authorize the city manager to sign a grant agreement with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation for the zoning ordinance recodification project in the amount of $30,000. So A minus B, you can do the math. So I'll take a motion a second for both.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute a project proposal from Williams & Works for the recodification of the city's zoning ordinances in the amount of $52,375. And I'd make a motion to authorize the city manager to sign a grant agreement with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation for the zoning ordinance recodification project in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second. I've got Kate and Griffin both. All right, we're finally going to do this. This is it. This is get this done.
Yes, we are, and this happens to be, as you know, our third priority, working on these codifications. We started with the code of ordinances, but we also know that there's a lot of zoning issues going on right now, so we want to accelerate that process. We have, back in 2020, we worked with Williams & Works to conduct an audit as they were doing more of our day-to-day administration, because there was a number of things that were being brought up of inconsistencies in the zoning ordinance. So using that report, we then fleshed out a process for this recodification, and did seek this proposal from Williams & Works. We also used Williams & Works as a preferred vendor with the MEDC to go ahead and apply for this $30,000 grant towards our recodification process. We do anticipate it's going to take some time because this is a pretty lengthy ordinance. It's over 300 pages. It's bulky, it's unwieldy, and at points inconsistent. So this is a pretty momentous undertaking, but we think that with having a lot of staff, Mr. Curcio, Ryan Kilpatrick, and of course our RRC consultant, we want to make sure that they're on board because we want to maintain our certification with RRC. We're going to have all this going forward.
And do we think it'll be shorter?
That is the hope, that it's more concise, readable, and that it's readable and applicable for anyone.
And searchable?
Searchable.
And searchable,
exactly.
we can find it easier, okay. Shorter, searchable, and I guess any other just important thing, I guess we've had several things of late that I think we've kind of come to realize that we're kind of working with something that's been put together over
That's right.
a long time.
This is an ordinance that was adopted in 1983, and there's been a series of amendments over time, but they've also created a lot of inconsistencies and weird sections. So we're trying to, again, make a new document that is readable, applicable, and that you don't need an attorney to go ahead and look through your code of ordinances, or your zoning ordinance, rather. I should state that we have budgeted for these amounts. This is when we adopted the budget, this has already been budgeted out.
Okay, perfect. Other council questions?
So when this is done, we won't need the city attorney anymore.
I know how much you like seeing him, so we might just pop in to say hello. But yes,
Sorry,
that's the.
He's like, sure. All right, how about go ahead, Joe.
So they're not going to just review it, they're going to actually, in many cases, rewrite it.
Yeah.
And if they rewrite it, does everything they rewrite have to come back to city council for approval?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the final document.
If I can, Councilman Reese, I think something to clarify when we're talking about rewriting. It doesn't mean that all of the regulations in the existing zoning ordinance are necessarily going to change. It means we're going to take a look at them and may make some recommendations on some that would be beneficial in changing. When we're talking about rewriting, we're talking about reorganizing, reformatting, restructuring to make a more modern and user-friendly document for residents, developers, property owners, and city staff. I will say I think this is a very exciting undertaking for all of us. I know those on the Planning Commission, city staff, and I'm assuming many of you recognize how large an undertaking this is. I mean, we're talking about probably a 12 to 15 month process, but this is something that communities don't get to do very often. And when they do, you can see really immediate returns because it clarifies a lot of the inconsistencies that I think we've been dealing with recently. So I think it's a really exciting thing, and for the state to be able to recognize how important this is and to contribute a significant amount of money to help support this, I think it puts us in a really good place moving forward.
Okay, well stated, thank you. Public questions on this?
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. I'm glad you said do the math, Mayor, because I did. And the staff report says that the 30,000 will be about 50%. So that's 60,000. Now it appears Kilpatrick's going to be involved, and he was for housing, and this is for zoning. Looking through all the information back to 2020 when the recodification was evaluated, and in that time, with regard to Williamson Works, since about June 2019, I believe, when they were brought on board, the city has paid over $235,000 to this firm. I have been a bit disappointed with the work from Mr. Kortba. He was involved with some verbal approval for the 77 Clinton, which now is in litigation. And he also was intimately involved with the two ordinances that are now back at the Planning Commission because there were problems with them, with the way they went through. And in fact, the current zoning rewrite is removing some protections. And so, although I've heard wonderful things about the firm, with the sole reliance on this person who has been involved, I am concerned that there's a lack of objectivity. I am concerned that he is the one who has put the city in litigation with 77 Clinton. I am concerned that he has drafted ordinances that have had to be redone in less than a year that were unanimously passed by the Planning Commission and City Council, I believe. In that one ordinance, he forgot a significant knot so that the fire pit was to be injurious. There's a serious lack of objectivity. There is so much, I'm concerned that the firm is unable to say no to the city staff that seems to insert themselves into the interpretation of legislation ordinances when that is far beyond and exceeds what they're authorized to do. If you look at the website for Williamson Works, their engineers and surveyors, they are experienced in day-to-day application of zoning administration. There is nothing that says they're experienced with drafting. And I'm very concerned, again, with the drafting issues that have occurred in the last year. We have paid them a significant amount of money to do the evaluation that came out in 2020. And in 2020, in that time, from 2019 to 2020, we paid them over $38,000, and now they're asking for over $52,000. And there just seems to be a lot of unanswered questions. Granted, the zoning ordinance is a mess. In fact, city staff has said that they don't appreciate, or that it's unfortunate that they have to interpret too much, which I believe is a misstep, overstep of their authority. And yes, the zoning ordinance does need to be reviewed, but I think the plain and clear language of the zoning ordinance, if it were applied, would require a lot less time of the staff time trying to interpret it the way they want it interpreted to assert different opinions and legal conclusions rubber stamped by the city attorney. I believe that what should be done with how much Williamson Works has been involved to ensure fair, objective evaluation and recodification is to put this out for a request for proposal. Only that way will you ensure that things are done properly, objectively, and in the best interest of the community of South Haven. Because right now, with the legal predicament that the verbal okay on which the plaintiffs relied on in 77 Clinton has put the city in, and now having to take up precious planning commission time to redo ordinances that were not done the right time. And with the current draft I see, I'm very displeased with the striking of subject matter that actually makes it more harmful to residents than adjoining property owners than less harmful, and complete ignoring the directives of this city council to look at not just permanent fireplaces, but also portable fireplaces, which they said would be kicked down the lane. So, and the recodification is organization. It's not a rewrite per se. So not only is it being kicked down the road, it's being kicked into the ditch. The citizens of South Haven need a fair review, objective review, one that we can have some confidence. And right now, because of the actions of the past year, we lack total confidence. Please put this out for RFP do not accept Williams and Works.
Thank you. Staff, you guys have worked with them. Could we like to respond or just? make a
I'd like
comment?
to respond that we did pay Williams and Works to be our on-site zoning administrator when we did not have one. I think I've said to this council many times that we have had many different zoning administrators since I've been here. When we were in a position where we did not have one and we did not have one to step up, we did ask Williams and Works to do that. So yes, you're going to see higher costs to pay a consultant to come in here. I'm very happy to have the zoning administrator that we have today. We'd like to have some consistency in that office rather than the revolving door of zoning administrators for the last 7 years, but this is where we're at, and yes, we did have to pay high prices. We also have worked with Williams & Works. We're going to have Andy Moore, who's been with that firm for 17 years. Williams & Works actually does zoning ordinance codification. It's not so much the day-to-day that we asked them to step into because we were in a bind, but we asked them to look at this as codification because this is what they do for other communities.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add to that, I'm also going to respectfully disagree with some of the comments that were made. Williams & Works is one of the most reputable planning and zoning firms in the state of Michigan, particularly when it comes to these larger scale projects, recodifications of zoning ordinances, master plan rewrites, and so on and so forth. So I think we're actually quite fortunate to have the relationship we have with a firm like Williams & Works. The fact that they've already done the preliminary audit to our zoning ordinance is going to allow them not only to get started sooner, but to do this work more cost effectively for the city of South Haven. They also have experience, hands-on, on the ground experience with many of the challenges associated with the existing zoning ordinance that's going to bring value to their role. And additionally, I know Kate mentioned it earlier, but they're an approved vendor by the MEDC. Part of the application process for us getting this funding from the MEDC was benefited by having that relationship with them already. So, I hear the comments. I think there are lots of things we're working through, but when it comes to trying to resolve the confusion, the lack of clarity, some of the inconsistencies that we've all been talking about for the last several months, one of the easiest ways to do that is to get started on this project. It's going to be a long project. It's going to be 12 to 16 months. So the sooner we can get going, the sooner we can get professionals on board with Williams & Works, like the city attorney, like planning consultants from the MEDC, Ryan Kilpatrick on specific things. We're going to be able, assuming City Council considers this evening, to have plenty of resources to ultimately bring a really high-quality product to the Planning Commission to then vet and edit and consider before being brought before you all.
Okay. No, thank you both. I just think it's important for everyone to realize we've worked with this firm before. They've got a very good reputation, and so thank you. All right, other council questions on this one, or I guess, and we have another, let's get one more from the public, and then we'll.
I feel like I'm in an awkward position because I'm hearing two sides of this, and I think Mary's points are very compelling. I think Griffin's points are very compelling. To me, the cost of doing this is less important than doing it right. This has cost this city a lot of money having problems with zoning. And so aside from cost, because I don't think that should be the driving force, it is the quality and it is the objectivity of this company that we should be looking at. And the timeline, I don't think we want to rush it. I think we got to do it right. But the precarious position I feel, and I can't speak for anyone else up here, but I don't know who's right. I don't know. Griffin, you make a compelling point. I think Mary makes a compelling point. I do think if we make the wrong decision, it's going to cost us, and it's been costing us on this issue. So I don't even know how to vote on this at this point because I don't know who's right and who's wrong. Does that make sense, Kate? That it's a difficult situation, and a lot of the residents have been unhappy with some of us and with staff, and now we're being asked to pick a company that a person that I think is very knowledgeable has real concerns. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I just don't know. I'm repeating myself. I don't know how to vote on this because I don't know who's right and wrong on this issue, and are they good or aren't they? And it's a difficult situation to be in.
I'll let that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Mike Campbell, 216 Erie. Just a couple of questions and then maybe a suggestion. So we're talking here simply of recodification of the zoning ordinance, not about the code of ordinances. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. The second point is thinking through the entire process. Once the vendor, whomever that will be, provides a reviewed set of the zoning ordinance, because a zoning ordinance is for the public safety, i.e. the residents, I would endorse, and I would hope that this council would endorse, a series of public hearings around that ordinance to allow for public comment as part of the review process before it's actually adopted.
That would, yeah, that's, go ahead.
There would have to be public hearings before any zoning ordinance could be adopted, yes.
Yeah.
And then finally, to Mr. Reeser's point, not knowing how to vote, certainly, given that this body operates under the Roberts Rules of Order, a council person who is in doubt of how to vote could always move to table the motion, and then there would be a vote on tabling it so that it would go to another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any other public questions? All right, so let's finish this up here. Do you want to respond to something, or?
Sure,
Let's
I
vote.
do. Knowing that, there's never one person who sees all sides of an issue. We wanted to build a committee that would help us. I've asked George if he would be part of it. I'm looking for another planning commissioner who would be part of it. Again, these are people who see this ordinance on a monthly basis, who work with a lot of these issues, and they can see things that maybe we may not see them from a staff's perspective, from the attorney's perspective, or from Williams and Works' perspective. Again, we're trying to build a committee that can help work on this and advance this throughout the months, because we really do need to get this done.
Okay. I agree.
One thing that makes me comfortable is the 3 different milestones that we're required to do with the grant administrator through the whole process. So not only is city staff and planning commission going to be reviewing this thing, but the grant administrator we also have to make happy as well through the whole process. So there's quite a few eyes looking at this at the same time, so I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. All right, then we've got a motion, we've got a second. All those, sorry.
I'm Lisa Croupiers, 561 Indiana. So I'm understanding Williams and Works was the stand-in when we didn't have a zoning administrator. They were fulfilling that role. Is that correct? Someone from Williams and Works?
Yes.
Yes.
And to me, I believe that would be the time when 77 Clinton, 300 Erie, some of these major issues that we see in our neighborhoods, those mistakes were made. I mean, that is a problem for me. When 77 Clinton, when I know that those plans were submitted on a piece of notebook paper, those drawings for their construction, and they were approved, that really is very troublesome. That they were fulfilling that role and that kind of thing was going through. So, yeah, I agree with Mary. I do, and Joe. I don't know enough about this to know what to believe and how I would vote on it, but that particular thing is very troublesome. That has been extremely disruptive to us as a community and troublesome. So, thank you.
Thank you. One last comment, then we'll vote.
Sure. Williams and Works has worked with the city of South Haven for 5 or 6 years at this point, so this isn't a new relationship. I think there's been many projects over the years that Williams and Works have been involved in. Williams and Works is also a large firm. It's not one individual, so there's going to be many hands on deck that a group like Williams and Works will be able to bring to a project like this.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go.
Can I ask 2 questions? Sorry if that's in the information, or in the packet, but the committee, can you talk about more who that will be?
Sure. It'll be
Including-
myself, it'll be Griffin, it'll be Kelly Doucette, who was our zoning administrator. We also have Nick Curcio. We'll ask Brian Kilpatrick to weigh in on some items. We also have our RRC project manager. We have, who's I think also seeing some of the grant stuff from the NEDC, or no?
They're involved,
Same,
yes. Yeah, it's a requirement of the grant for our region's RRC, which is our Redevelopment Ready's community certification, for our region's community planner to be involved.
I've also asked Mr. Sleeper if he'd be willing to serve on that committee, and then we'll be asking a planning commissioner.
Okay.
And that's to do, Councilwoman Onoki, that's to do the preliminary, well, not the preliminary review, we've done the audit. That's to do, put some drafts together. It will then be brought to the public and to the Planning Commission to go through that process as well. So there's going to be a significant public piece and Planning Commission piece and eventually City Council piece of going through any review of this size.
Okay. And then my second question was, I know it's a priority for us. We've talked about looking at some of our current ordinances and trying to modernize them in different areas. I'm just thinking of like residential areas right now and housing. If we're doing that in tandem with this, how does that
There's going to be a lot of conversations that have been had in, I'll say in the short time that I've been here, that this will be a ripe time to start to incorporate changes like that. Instead of doing it on a piecemeal basis or a Band-Aid type amendments that I think the city by necessity has had to do over the past 50 years of working with this ordinance, the chance to take a holistic look at updates like this will make it a ripe time to incorporate those types of larger scale changes if that's what groups like the Planning Commission and eventually City Council decide.
Okay.
It feels to me more and more that we have residents that are not necessarily happy with some of the things going on with staff and with City Council. And this seems like one of those times, and maybe I'm thinking out of the box and maybe I'm off on this, but I appreciate George being on the committee because I think he's very detail-oriented, and with his background, he'd probably be ideal. I think we have a lot of talented people in this town. Some of these issues have come up. I've met with many people just in Ward 1 and a little bit in Ward 3, and there are very intelligent, talented pool of people. Could we take one or two people from our residents and put them on a committee too at the beginning? So it's not coming all the way at the end where people have to stand up and say they don't like the conclusions. Let them be part of the process. Is that possible?
Well, it's all, I mean, we can add as many people, but the larger the committee gets, the less effective it is. So it all depends on what you'd like to see.
I'd like to see at least one resident.
I love that idea.
Pardon me?
I like that idea.
That could be, I mean, that's something that could be discussed.
Okay.
I mean, tonight, obviously, but I mean, we can
All right,
discuss.
we'll work on that.
Community participation or
Well,
whatever, so.
we'll work on that, I guess, if council approves it.
Okay. All right, well, then let's get to that part. We've got a motion, we've got a second to execute the project proposal from Williams & Works, and then also authorize the city manager to sign a grant agreement with the MEDC. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. It passes. Very good. Get to work. This is going to be a process. There will be a lot of meetings before this is all said and done. So, we're at the City Council being asked to receive an update on the fiscal year 2021-2022 City Council priorities. So, just a quick update from Kate. Thanks, Kate, for doing this for us. Tell us where we're at.
Sure. So I have in your packet kind of a red, yellow, green system next to the to our previous year's priorities. And I wanted to kind of let you know how things were shaping up. We continued to do our economic development efforts, and that included meeting with a number of businesses. We also intend to give a very detailed economic development project analysis at our next meeting. But I wanted to let you know we've been continuing our site visits, meeting with businesses. I'm happy to report that W.R. Grace is planning a $25 million expansion, and we are working with W.R. Grace to ensure that that goes off seamlessly. We've also seen the expansion of Revere Manufacturing, which has already gone through the Planning Commission for site plan review. So we're working with our local businesses to retain them and help them grow. We have been working on addressing our housing needs. As you know, we've completed the Overton process. Now, they did not get funding in this round, but they are working on getting a consultant to help them be more successful in the October round. We've also reached out to Senator Nesbitt's office to help us facilitate that application going forward, looking for more local support. I do want to also mention that we've worked on a joint planning session hosted with South Haven Charter Township to talk about our housing needs. Out of that, I've taken that the council wants to see, look into developing a housing authority to better prepare ourselves for the future. There's a number of grants that are being offered by the state that look at the 80 to 120 AMI. And a housing authority, I think, may be the best way to go forward. So we're investigating what that would look like. But again, we've been making a lot of progress from last fiscal year on our housing, and that was culminated with the purchase agreement and the PUD adoption for Overton. I do want to say that we've also been working on market rate housing in the Central Business District. While the Hales project has not really gone much further than our ideation sessions from last year, it looks like the Consumers Credit Union will be bringing their planning commission a site plan review to the Planning Commission. For Central Business District maintenance improvements, we pretty much exceeded all of our goals on this one except for the development of a downtown shuttle. This is pretty much with working with the CVB. They determined that they were not going to be offering a shuttle this year, or of course during those 2 COVID years. So that was the one red spot on our priorities from last year. Diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Here we have we had our detailed update on DEI on April 11th, but I also wanted to let you know that we've been scheduling our equity assessment. I do hope to schedule a workshop on August 15th, but we've been making these motions going forward. We have expanded our city's website to talk about those different efforts, as well as any improvements that we've been making. Future planning and management of the conservation of the waterfront. Notable developments included the completion of the North Marina project, as well as the sale of All Seasons Marina to Gull Lake Marine. That was a huge coup for the city to ensure that we have marine services in the city. I know that there are many different ideas for that waterfront area, but I know when the city came together with those 3 planning sessions, when we were looking at making a run with the MNRTF grant, the city's vision was pretty much aligned with all the stakeholders. So we were pretty happy to have Gull Lake Marine in our town. Public roads and infrastructure improvements. Again, a lot of these were taken care of with sidewalk improvements, but we've actually had to move some of our road projects to this fiscal year, but those are on track of getting done. Parks, public spaces, and community recreation improvements. Our development of the non-motorized trail along Phoenix Street to Veterans Boulevard was completed. We also have been working with South Haven Public Schools. They've got their bond proposal. They've got a lot of earthwork activities out there right now, and we're hoping to, again, get our sidewalk now on Aylworth in this next fiscal year and trying to align with those activities with the schools. Also, we've been implementing the recommendations from the Beach Safety Committee. As you know, we've already got our new ordinance, we've got the pier barriers, and now finally the life jacket loaner board. So we've been seeing a lot of good improvements there. Fiscal responsibility and budgetary restraint. As you know, we've been trying to come in and be as closely aligned to our budget as possible. We are looking at those dollars. Department heads have been very stringent with their budget, so I think that's come out really well. And city ordinance codification. It's been a little slow, but as you know, we've been kicking things off tonight, and we intend to kind of get this sorted out with the addition of a community member to add to that committee. So I know it's kind of brief, but I've been very impressed with city staff and, of course, our efforts to maintain and to carry out the priorities as been dictated, as been agreed to by this council. So I think we did a very good job in fiscal year 21-22.
Sounds good. Thanks for the update. Joe, go ahead.
I want to compliment Kate and the staff. I think since I've been on city council, this is my 5th year now, this is the first time I think there's really been a concerted effort to keep going back to our goals and making sure we're addressing them instead of waiting to the last couple of months and trying to pull it all together. So I think we're on the right track with that.
I would agree. So we appreciate it. And so we kick off a new year, and we will do the same. We'll keep everybody updated and keep chugging away. So appreciate it. All right. And next, we are ready for an update from our DPW director, Mr. William Hunter. Good evening, Bill. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so formal there. You're not in trouble.
Thank you, Your Honor, City Council. The following is just an update for the DPW, projects within DPW. New substation, we just had that in front of City Council, approving the contractor plus the pit containment. Staff is working with NPPA and what is called actually a facilities agreement. That actually defines the responsibilities within the substation with AEP, because they have a separate little room for their meters, and it's very detailed. So we're still going back and forth with them, and MPPA is helping us with this. AMI project, we expect the meters to come in the fall of 2020, and we expect it to be completely, all the meter changed out by the spring of 2023. Aylworth non-motorized path, that is a CMAQ. CMAQ stands for Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, administered by the DOT, MDOT. This is Aylworth from Kalamazoo to LaGrange. It's a 10-foot path. This will go out for bids actually this summer through the MDOT process, and we're hopefully in a fall, spring completion. The DPW building locker room improvements. Yes, I do know the building is new. However, the current locker room never did accommodate for both genders. So we are working with GMB to do a design would partition off and actually have it for both genders within there. City all handling unit, we did a separate contractor to put a hatch. We have to put actually a hatch on the top of the building. You guys will never see it, but it'll just be a small hatch where we can remove the old handling units and put the new ones in, which the new ones are about half the size, believe it or not, but the same, that do the same job. So it just shows you how much technology has improved and how we can do something at lower costs. SHASA DSMI, that is the Distribution System Material Inventory. That's required actually by Eagle. Staff is working through a random verification of 551 of our spots. This calls for actually a potholing of 4 locations, and just to verify that our DSMI is accurate. The Blueberry Tank Vault Project, that was awarded to Allied Services in the amount of $151,132. What this valve will do, allow us to raise the hydraulic grade so we can actually go from the low pressure to the high pressure district and feed. The city is split up in 2 different districts, low and high, and that's why sometimes when we've had a couple of our complete shutdowns of the system, we had almost the city split in half, and that was either the low side or the high side actually being isolated. This will allow actually with this valve, what it does is it shuts off, so the tank is at its highest point before it actually overflows, and allows the pumps from the water plant actually to pressurize the system to feed back into the other. And we couldn't do that before. We had to float the system, what it's called. We can only go by our highest point, which would be the overflow of the Blueberry, and wouldn't allow us to feed to the other side. But this one will allow us to do so. Cross-connection inspections also has a contract with HydroCorp. HydroCorp does all the inspections. Yes, through the Safe Water Drinking Act, this is required. It's never ending, and it will be here now to the end of time. We'll always have to inspect. There's 2 parts of this, the inspection. There's the site inspection, the testing of the backflow prevention devices. Somebody asked me a question the other day, how often the device is tested? And it depends on the device, and it depends on the severity of what it's protecting. But if it's a high hazard, then it'll be every year. And believe it or not, actually your irrigation systems are classified as high hazard because you can use fertilizer on it. And for example, if you just laid fertilizer and then something happened and you had a puddle and it sucked the fertilizer into the system, that's why it's actually a high hazard. So believe it or not, those have to be tested once a year. The wastewater treatment plant, we are applying for, it's called a Clean Water Revolving Fund. And that's actually for the high water at the Shawsa wastewater treatment plant. A few years back, we had the flooding that everybody's aware of. We had the HESCO barriers around the wastewater treatment plant. This is actually to solve that problem. Where Hope's actually going through the Clean Water Revolving Fund is there'll be some loan forgiveness. And that is how the state is issuing all the federal money out. You have the Clean Water Revolving Fund, the Drinking Water Revolving Fund. That's what the mechanism they're going to use to issue federal funds. So the funds go to the state, and this is what they use. How much is the loan forgiveness going to be? The state's they're not telling us what that is yet, because I think they have a lump of money, but they don't know how many projects are coming in. So they wait till all the project plans come in, and then they'll issue what that loan forgiveness is. Beach nourishment at the South Beach, working with the Army Corps on specifications for the beach nourishment. That's been a slow process. We've had a couple of meetings with them. We've been trying to get them to nourish the beach from the channel south, but there's been some issues with the state on that, and we're trying to work with them at this time. Kids Corner Phase 2, we've received actually through the Water Conservation Fund, $275,000, city matches $275,000. We have the construction documents for review to the DNR right now. We expect the review to be completed by September, documents issued for bids sometime late September. Pre-bid meeting will be required, questions, maybe addendums issued, but you're looking at probably not a contract award until November of this year at the earliest. Pier railing at the gates, we're still waiting actually for the agreement from the Army Corps of Engineers, federal government. You gotta love it. So we're hopefully they're saying September, October, but I've worked in the federal government. That could be January, February. So I just hope by next year we have a nice agreement buttoned up and in place. And we have another agreement we're working with them too on the life rings as well, a renewal of that one. So that one will be going back in front of City Council as well. Crosswalk policy, the DPW team is working on a policy that will define actually approved the Michigan Manual for Uniform Traffic Code and Devices, approved devices and markings and where the locations and the justification of why. Decertification of Park Street, do an audit of Act 51, and this map, of course, has been around since 1951, of course. We'd actually discovered that we've been receiving funds for park, which a section of park that doesn't exist. So the state's not asking for money back. They're asking for us just to decertify it, so we'll have a resolution in front of City Council. Water service replacement, Shawsa awarded a contract to Compton's Incorporated to do water services in select areas within the city for the summer and the fall of this year. In addition to that, they're also working in the same areas where we're doing street resurfacing the spring of 2022. Some of those streets are Superior from Maple Street to Center, Van Buren Street from Indiana to Center, Spencer from Indiana to Kalamazoo, Cartwright from Indiana to Center, Able from Indiana to Center, and Cable from Indiana to Center. So what we do is try to focus on the resurface areas, try to focus on those ones to replace the services. But with the requirement of the amount of services we have to do, we had to start looking outside of the resurface area, and that's what the other contract is for. We have to hit at least 100 services per year, and last year we didn't do it, so we're trying to shoot for 151 to get us ahead. We will be actually putting together a project plan with reaching out actually to other engineering firms to assist Shawsa in putting together a project plan to look at using the Drinking Water Revolving Fund to do more of the services, which, again, what I discussed, it's where the state receives the federal money, and I think that's the only way we're going to get federal money to offset for the replacement of lead services. Does city council have any questions on any of these projects or anything DPW related at this time?
Mr. Schulman?
I apologize for my lack of knowledge here, but bring me back to the DSMI, the SHASA, where it says we have to do a random 4-point verification on 551 locations,
Yes, that has to.
551 new potholes.
Correct. Now, some of them, they do allow, and according to the regulation, they do allow certain assumptions. For example, if the 4-point verification is one at the main, one on one side of the curb stop, one on the other side of the curb stop, so both sides of it, upstream, downstream, plus at your location or in the basement of the house. So the house ones are easy, because we can get those through knocking on the door or whatever records that if we have recently that we've been in there. The other one by the curb stop's a simple vector on both sides. Now, for example, if I vector on both sides of the curb stop and I find there's galvanized, then I'm going to assume I don't have to go on the road because I know for a fact it's probably called a lead gooseneck, which we'll call it a lead service now. The only issue that we're having is if I find copper, I have to actually go out to the road and pothole because I found in the city of South Haven that they used copper and lead together. Now I have to, I don't know, I don't have any records when they stopped doing it. But since I don't have any records when they stopped doing it, I actually have to pothole when I see copper. So to answer your question, it's actually better for us if we find galvanized than if we find copper in those 550.
And this is all at the expense of the SHASA.
It is. This is all in the expense of, with the Safe Water Drinking Act, the revisions they made in 2018. This is, yes, all has to do with SHASA.
So all these requirements coming down is what helps to bring our sewer and water bills up, correct?
Correct.
We have to cover those costs at the expense of our utility.
Correct.
Okay. My second question is, do we have any information on what caused the sewer backup on Dunkley Avenue yet?
I don't have that with me right now.
Okay.
I can get back
I'll
with
get
you on
with you
that.
on that. Thank you.
I have a question for you. Does the city, are we doing any water testing on the beaches? Okay.
Yes, it's handled through Van Buren County Health Department, and they do it on their schedule, and they send us the results. So far, all the results that have been coming in are within the range, so we haven't posted anything. But yes, they get tested by Van Buren County Health Department.
Do you know, like, whereabouts, the frequency of that?
They take it at multiple points on the beach, on North and South beaches.
Oh, sorry, I just meant, like, how often do they do it?
Oh, I'm not sure, but I think they do it monthly.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hey, Bill, you mentioned a committee on crosswalks.
Yes, it's a policy, actually. We're putting together a policy on, that would establish actually what devices are used at what crosswalks and the methodology behind that. For example, if you're going to put in a W11-2, which is the rectangle, that shows the pedestrian crossing, what needs to happen for that to happen? For example, is it X number of pedestrians crossing? Is it traffic to this volume? So that's what we're establishing. In addition to that is the other devices that can be used in combination of that.
Would that also cover Broadway and Phoenix, even though they're MDOT owned?
No, I can't, I have no
Okay.
jurisdiction over that as much as yeah.
Okay.
It's still on our wish list. We continue to ask every time we see them that we would like crosswalks with little flashers at Phoenix and Broadway.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So yes. I know at some point in time, we'll have to look at the crosswalk at Bailey at the hospital too, because pretty soon it's just going to go to a grass field. It may need to be shifted down, but I can figure that out with the hospital. So, all right, anybody else? If not, Bill, have a great night. All right, and that takes us to citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. And if you'd like to come up and speak, state your name and address. You'll have up to 5 minutes. We'll go from there. Going once, going twice. Just made it.
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Nancy, who could not be here tonight. So she was here on May 16th, and that is when we first learned that Habitat did not get the funding from her question as opposed to staff telling us. And at that time, we were told that they had not gotten it, and we had inquired about the letter from ISHTA, whether we would get that and where that might get posted, and it was recommended by staff that they could use the Overton page, and I note that there's now also a Brownfield tab. But in checking both of them, there are no updates whatsoever with regard to Overton and what's going on. And I've recently heard that there is undertaking by the city paid environmental consultant to get an EGLE grant. And so we would like to know what the status of that is and whether that will get posted. We were told that the results would get posted, but being the transparent city that this is and the inquisitive residents that you have, it would be very nice to know what is believed to be needed at Overton and why EGLE grant was pursued, and it would be nice to know what the consultant fees were associated with that and how will that be used and who will get to use it, and the status of that. And when will the grant application for the Overton site be redone? And it sounds like, based on the update previously, that the Habitat has not yet retained a consultant, and I was just wondering how often our city-paid consultant is meeting with Habitat to provide guidance at the taxpayers' expense, and how will we get to find out that information? And will Habitat solely be responsible for the cost and strategy for the reapplication? And that is tied to the previous question. We just want transparency. We want to know how much is hidden through standard payments to our consultants and when they're meeting with our developers, or I should say the developers who have partnered with the city. The city is paying our consultant to meet with them to do their job, and that just does not seem fair to the taxpayers. Also, when will there be a vote on the due diligence for the Habitat agreement? I believe that will be coming up. Would you please tell us when that is and tell us exactly when it is, not what you might think it might be. Just for a public announcement to come out just a handful of days later, like what happened with the rezoning application. And with regard to transparency, why don't you put all the cards on the table? There have been several questions and outstanding FOIAs for, just exactly how many residents would qualify for the subsidized, government-subsidized housing that Habitat is providing, and the handful of market rate apartments included in that. And why are, what just justifies the number of increased subsidized housing and not pursuing the attainable housing, which was in our plan, in our master plan. And so if I could find out when that information would get put on Overton site, that would be beneficial. Appreciate it.
Thank you. If you want to have a seat, I'll have Kate see if she can answer any of them.
Well, I have another minute. She can answer during my time.
Then finish up.
That's it.
So you're all done with your comments?
Yep, and just like you let other people stand up here with regard to various items, with staff answering them, I would request that you do the same consideration for me.
You're welcome till you get to the 5-minute mark. Why don't you just answer one of them? How's that sound?
Sorry about that. I believe that we are working with Habitat to get the information that we have from the LIHTC application, but we have not received it. I don't believe that we've received, not sure if it's a letter or how they determine that. I can't remember that offhand. As for I guess I should have made a
Eagle.
list. We do have a new Eagle representative for this area, and we are going to be looking at meeting that person. As for the remediation, I understand there's quite a bit of brownfield funding being given by the state. And we thought we would go for some of that as part of a way to, lower the costs if possible, with no cost to the city. Now, there's always going to be costs in anything we do up here, right? Cost means staff time, cost means us being on the phone, stuff that would take us away from other things. But this remains a priority for the city in addressing housing needs. We have this Overton project, we want to see this get done. It's by no means the only housing project that we would ever do, hopefully not. But there's other things that are in the works with not only with housing with South Haven Charter Township, but Habitat for Humanity is in this area. There's other housing projects in this area that would like to keep their low-income certifications or go to other kind of certifications. So there's all sorts of things that city staff are working on, and that does come at a cost to taxpayers. But again, this city council has made addressing housing need a priority. And as for the due diligence for Overton, there is a clause in the purchase agreement that if they paid more money into the escrow account, the due diligence agreement will be extended. And they've already been notified of that, and I believe that that's what they're going to intend to do, is to add more money to their escrow account and to extend their due diligence agreement per the purchase agreement.
And the reapplication timeline is,
October 1 for the next phase of Light Tech.
okay, so that'll be October 1. We can keep that posted.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's about it. What's that?
I don't know, I'm not sure. I don't really have any information on that. I can be happy to follow up via email on that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, was there anybody else who has questions, comments?
Mike Campbell, 216 Erie. Punchline of this comment is that I want to make a commendation to Chief Thompson and the South Haven Police Department. And the reason for it is that every day I walk for exercise, and I walk in an area bounded by Monroe Boulevard, South Haven Street, Kalamazoo, and Eagle, and every east-west street in between. That is a fair amount of the south side and a large number of areas where we have visitors every week. The passion that I have is about the city ordinance around cars parking across the public walk. I obviously experience it in my walk, and so instead of just walking by, I thought, well, as was invited by the city, we could help with the code enforcement, so I take note of the addresses where there is this happening. And I report them to the Paw Dispatch. The reason I have this passion is because 40% of our population is 65 or older, and many people have mobility issues. Also, the second reason is that area is heavily populated by visitors, and it's also thoroughfares east-west to and from the beach. And so we want to be welcoming to our visitors, and we want to have clear sidewalks, because I've actually seen families pulling wagons full of children onto the street on Erie Street because there are cars parked across the public walk. It's not very safe for them. So I report these, and I'm very pleased to say that the police department always sends officers, because every day I walk, and so I see progress in public walks being cleared. I also take the opportunity to stop at houses if it's not early in the morning or when people are outside, to simply introduce myself and say, hey, there's an ordinance here. You probably have one in your own city. It would be nice if you would park your car on the street, and they're very welcoming and appreciate the effort. So again, I want to thank the officers and Chief Thompson for enforcing that law and for taking my calls and the addresses. And I would encourage other residents to do the same in their little corners of South Haven. Thank you.
That's a good idea. Thanks. And thanks for trying to let people know. It's important. Anybody else?
Joe Wilkins, 811 Indiana Street. I have one point of clarification and one concern. I think it might be for Kate and for Bill Hunter. The first one, for point of clarification, the Blueberry Festival, the National Blueberry Festival is coming, as was stated, and from August the 11th to the 14th. to be a part of that National Blueberry Festival, as a vendor, you have to fill out an application, and you have to be approved as a vendor. There's a lot of things you have to have. And then, with consideration, if there's not another person that's selling or providing the same service that you're providing, you might get in. That was what was told to me. And so this year, we were lucky to get into the National Blueberry Festival. We didn't get down on Water Street because we were told there was already a vendor there that has been a part of the National Blueberry Festival that does provide the same service that we're providing. So we were put up on Huron at the pavilion, which is great. My point of clarification is that came with a fee, I believe about $500. So what I saw tonight was, I just point of clarification. So to be a part of the National Blueberry Festival, you have to go through those procedures. On tonight, you guys approved a special event as a part of the National Blueberry Festival in the same location that we were put. And I'm not against this person being on Huron Street. It seems like it's going to be for a worthy cause. I'm just trying to get clarity on what is the true process. Because for years we couldn't get in, and there was certain things we had to meet to be a part of the National Blueberry Festival. On tonight, you added somebody to a part of the National Blueberry Festival on Huron Street using a different process.
You talking about the barbecue?
Yeah.
Barbecue, yeah. That's, I don't know if you want to comment. I mean, that's a separate special event.
Okay, so if you can't get in, you can apply for a special event and be a part of it?
I guess the way to think about special events is that they're part of an overall event. National Blueberry Festival is a national organization. I believe it's a nonprofit that's worked on that. They can set up where they'd like to have vendors as part of that. My understanding is they have some on Water Street and they have some on Huron Street Pavilion. My understanding is that the barbecue, while this has been approved separately, has been already planned out with the National Blueberry Festival. So I'm not sure.
Why did they come through here?
Because they submitted their own application, but it's already been part of they've already worked out an agreement to share the space with National Blueberry Festival.
So it's a separate event, but they're sharing the space?
That's correct. And if they did not have approval, if National Blueberry Festival has already been approved by this board. If they didn't have approvals to be if National Blueberry Festival didn't sign off to have them also be as part of that event, we wouldn't necessarily bring this to council if there was already going to be that conflict. That space has been spoken for.
Yeah, again, I don't understand why they would have to come here if they already submitted an application, was approved by the National Blueberry Festival Committee. They assign where you go. So why would they have to come here?
I think they're coming here because even though that's been assigned, they're not a vendor per se. They're not paying, I don't know the arrangement of National Blueberry Festival, but again, it's using city property to do a fundraiser. I think it's appropriate that they do a separate application. Similar to Mr. Bobby Walker coming in here and doing a separate application, even though they're doing his own tournament during that National Blueberry Festival.
Okay, again, I don't buy that. But anyway, because they would have to pay to serve up there on that day. But my other concern is the parking around Elkinburg Street. Elkinburg Street has been yellowed out in front of our church. And you force the parking in front of our church, which is the main throughway. And this is the bill. I'd like to know, I think it was a questionnaire that went out. And I would like to know who that was sent to and what was the response, because it makes sense to allow those that are attending or at the park to park on the side street, which is Humphrey, because it makes that street so congested in front of our church, so congested. And I'm asking that the city would consider looking at that again and moving the traffic from Elkinburg, which is the main throughway, and it's very congested. We get trash all over the
Joe,
parking lot.
that's time.
Every
That's
time
time.
there's an event. I'm asking that you, or, first of all, I want to know who you sent those questions.
Joe, I'm about to mute this mic, okay? That's your time. I'll have you get with staff on that parking question, and Bill is here if he has an immediate answer. Just go ahead and get with staff. I can ask him if you'd like to have a seat. I'll have him come up.
There's been a pretty extensive polling in the surveying. I'd like to just respond in email. I can show you everything that we've done to make that decision.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else? 5 more minutes, 8:30 break.
If we didn't need it.
Good evening.
Hello. You ready, hon? All right. Hi, I'm Elaine Herbert, 404 North Shore Drive. I was a senior high school civics and political science teacher at one time. And yes, I expect fundamental fidelity to checks and balances within the 3 tiers of municipal government. Accountability is rough, but that's exactly why it's set up that way. So using school teacher skills, I'm going to try to review this until it gets right. And for those of you at home, administration, their duty is to interpret the zoning ordinance insofar as their duty is to interpret the zoning ordinance in their duty to enforce the ordinance. That's their duty. Any citizen like me who has a disagreement with the way that administration interprets the ordinance, any citizen, not just me, any citizen who has a disagreement with the way administration interprets the ordinance when making their decisions and actions as their role as enforcers of the ordinance has a right to plop down $300, 8 copies of a narrative with their story, a proper form that's available in the rack at the zoning window in City Hall, and bring an appeal of that decision and an action to a hearing at and a decision from your ZBA, your judicial body. Administration doesn't have authority to block those applications. You take my $300, and that's my ticket to ride, and your ticket to ride if you've got a problem with an administrative decision or interpretation of the ordinance. ZBA hears and decides. It says hears and decides over and over and over again in the ordinance. Doesn't need to be recodified to find that in the ordinance over and over and over again. Administration is the defendant in an appeal to ZBA, and as such is charged only with coming to the required ZBA public hearing with a defense of how and why they chose to interpret the ordinance that way, to make their decision and action to enforce the ordinance. ZBA's power and authority is to hear and decide all aspects of the appeal of the zoning ordinance. It isn't we can agree to disagree. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes that decision. That's the judicial side of our government. There is nothing that allows the city to ask for or require additional escrow funds at $1,500 a pop over the $300 fee in order to go forward for an appeal to the ZBA. The city manager knows this and still demands these excessive fees. Do I sound honked off? Because I am. It's also unconscionable untruth to tell citizens that the circuit court is their only option when a citizen wants to appeal, that is, disagree with and seek a ZBA hearing and a judgment about an action by the zoning administration. It is our right. Circuit court is the jurisdiction to which one must ultimately take an appeal only when and only if and only after one disagrees with the ZBA decision. It's in the ordinance. It doesn't need to be recodified for you to find it there. and I've been sending it to you. I know I have 1 minute, thank you. $300 is the ticket to ride, straight to the ZBA hearing. I laid down a total of $1,200 in fees with 5 applications to be rightfully heard and decided by ZBA. I have a right to plop it down and ask ZBA to anything I want about the zoning ordinance, anything. And I have a right to be heard. You already know that my concerns are not frivolous and are indeed serious enough for administration to be mounting this unprecedented, fully unauthorized blockade of my applications. We have a right to be on the agenda in full in July. You need to fix this. Yes, this is my school teacher voice. Yes, this is my school teacher look. Read the zoning ordinance. I've sent you sections of it with yellow highlights. Please govern your city accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Staff, I guess you've been handling this. If you just want to at least respond and let the public kind of
Sure, I think
know
one of the
what's going
first
on.
things I'd like to say is that Section 2202 addresses fees. And it states, "The required fees for a hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals are part of the cost of any zoning permit and are in addition to the building permit fees. The required fees for any hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals shall be paid as specified in Section 2106, and certain additional expenses may be recovered if there are any additional costs incurred over and above the amount of the required fee. Said costs shall include, but are not limited to, if applicable, any additional hearings, the attendance of the city attorney at the hearings, engineering fees, professional planning consulting fees. An escrow may be collected to pay for these costs per the procedure set in Section 2106. So with that being said, we are within our rights to ask for an escrow on this. And this goes to fiscal responsibility. This is something that Ms. Herbert's asking for. Her appeal on the 21 days is going forward. We've already sent her that letter. And we are going to ask for the escrow account to be paid in full so that the city taxpayers are not paying for this. This is Mrs. Herbert's will. She can pay for the escrow. Nick, do you have anything to add?
Sir, just kind of echoing what City Manager Hosier had said. The zoning ordinance does specifically authorize an escrow fee for this type of application. There's case law upholding the specific amount of this fee in $1,500 for this type of application. So the city does have the legal ability to charge that fee. Just a reminder to council about where things stand. Ms. Herbert's applications, several of them have been denied by staff on the grounds that they're untimely. The zoning ordinance has a 21-day appeal period following any decision. She has appealed the city staff's essentially citing of that or application of that 21-day deadline. That appeal is going forward, so the ZBA will be at a meeting at the end of this month to hear her appeal as to whether the city erred by not accepting her original appeal on the merits. If she were to prevail at the ZBA, then her original appeal on the merits would go forward. So basically, the ZBA is going to ultimately determine that issue of whether her applications were timely submitted within the 21-day window. So this matter isn't over. It is proceeding on that limited issue and could potentially proceed on a broader number of issues if the ZBA were to agree with her position. So that's where things stand. Happy to answer any other questions council has on this topic.
I mean, just be clear, if it's not used, it's returned. I mean,
That's correct.
I mean, it's,
Correct.
you know, it's just there in case it goes on.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are we good for one more comment, then a break? All right. Any more comments? I guess if we're good, then we'll go on to public comments. Okay. Anybody else? Any other public comments?
Good evening. Joyce Hagan McIntosh, 321 Monroe Street in South Haven. I was up here a few years ago giving literally an identical spiel to now, but I'm going to change the date slightly. I've been an active part of the community here in South Haven for the last 8 years. My family and I planned on moving here year-round. I grew up in Kalamazoo. We hope to move here year-round. We started building a house 8 years ago, and I ended up delivering our second son 9 weeks early, and the same week my spouse was diagnosed with advanced cancer, We are all fine. Everyone's alive. Everyone's well. What that meant for our family, however, is that that happened 2 months after we broke ground. We did build our home. We did both lose and then get new jobs. We have decided to stay close to our home in LaGrange, Illinois, because we have an amazing oncologist and great therapists. It also meant that we rent out our house 8 weeks every summer. My spouse is the youngest of 8. There are about 30 people in our close family. So we built a 5-bedroom house. By now, there's a part of our family here literally year-round, except for those 8 weeks. So the campaign, Neighbors Need Neighbors, has become so negative and in some ways impactful that it just makes me not want to be a year-round neighbor in South Haven. I'm friends with many of my neighbors, including year-round residents who own homes that they rent out as short-term rentals. I absolutely understand the need for fees. I appreciate annual inspections. I understand the need for caps. Having grown up in Southwest Michigan, I absolutely understand that. I also know that since, as a council, you worked on implementing some good processes, the number of rentals has gone down. So more about me being in town. I'm a member of the United Church of Christ. I have a little free library here. We have a geocache in it, so I meet tourists and year-round residents all the time. I support We Care year-round. I volunteer. I support Alvan Humane Society, and my 30 family members are here year-round, spending money, going shopping, going to the theater. And, in the past I've thought, within a few years when we don't need quite the level of care that we need within a mile, it would be nice to move back to Southwest Michigan. A few years ago, I remember looking at some of our plans. You were talking about TIFs. You were talking about the industrial, educational, medical corridor over by the college. And that is all very exciting. And I love the work for affordable housing. That's something that I appreciate. We're slowly moving beyond a pandemic, although I had COVID a month ago after 2.5 years of dodging it. But we're moving beyond it. I would love to hear more about where that plan is at. I'd love to hear more about additional plans besides just restricting short-term rentals. I'd love to hear what the plans are. I love the new school. It's gorgeous, thank you. So I'd like to hear more about those plans instead of getting up, seeing social media or signs in yards saying, we don't want to be your neighbor. That makes me want to live in Saugatuck and be their neighbor. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comments, appreciate it. All right, was there anybody else? If not, we will, nothing. All right. City Manager, Ms. Kate.
Thank you, Mayor. We wrapped up the 3 in-person facilitated sessions with Greg Goodshow on the community vision statement. We have extended the online questionnaire to run through July 19th. That's on the first page of the city's website, so the link is directly there. So we hope that people who have not already, given their thoughts or attended a session or already done the questionnaire, please give us your thoughts. We're looking forward to that. I know City Council is looking for a lot of public input on that community envisioning statement. I also want to let the City Council know that we've been notified by the Army Corps of Engineers that our harbor will be receiving some dredging this year. We're pretty lucky to get that as a recreational harbor. Because of our contract, the contract is with the Corps of Engineers, and they have to move the contract around. We're looking at either mid-July or August for that dredging. The clear sand, if that's what they're dredging out, will be placed on the South Beach. And then most importantly, I wanted to give a huge shout out, a big round of thanks and applause to city staff during the weekend's festivities. I can't tell you how many months of planning it has taken for Chief Thompson, Bill Hunter, myself, Quentin Clark, the police officers, Brandon Hins, Public Works to get this weekend's events off the ground. As you know, we had a wonderful fireworks show that went off very well, a very safe environment. We also know that there's been obviously some other things going around the nation, but I cannot commend our staff enough for what we did. The parade went well. The traffic snarls on the north side due to the art fair as well as fireworks, I think it went very, very well, and I'm very relieved and very happy about our safe events over the weekend. So my kudos to staff. We could not have done that without a team effort. So, and of course, thank you to Mayor Smith for raising those donations, but it really does take a lot of us to get all of that done and to do it in a properly safe manner. So kudos to staff.
Agreed. Thank from all of us. I mean, it was remarkable all the way around, so good stuff. So, any other questions for Kate? All right. Thanks, Kate. Good job. All right, council comments. I'll start on my left.
No comment.
I just wanted to thank all the Shays and the officers, obviously, for working on their holiday so that the city of South Haven could enjoy their holiday. So thank you to all the employees of the city of South Haven for working through the holiday. And I have heard a lot of positive comments as well. So thank you, city staff.
And my comments are the same, but it's worth repeating because it did such a great job. The city staff, the police, the fire, everything went wonderful. Even before the fireworks were launched, people that know I'm on council were stopping me saying, wow, they did a great job. The police looks so great. And so thank you, city staff. Thank you, police officers. We have one present. Thank you. And like Steve said, working on your holidays, it really went well.
No comment today.
I also want to thank everyone involved with the 4th of July. It was great. I also wanted to comment a little bit on some of the ordinance rework issues that we're dealing with. As a member of Planning Commission, I take responsibility for the quality of the ordinances, and I reviewed those ordinances that we're having to redo right now. And so I feel that, I could have done a better job, and I've pledged to myself that I am going to do a better job in looking at these things. But I do think that overall, Williams and Works does a good job, and so I think it's good that we're bringing them in to continue that effort. That's it.
Thank you.
And I just want to echo, I want to thank the police officers and staff and everyone involved in keeping all of us safe over 4th of July. I did call the police department with a concern over some fireworks. Officer Ronald, I forgot his last name, came out. What a gentleman, handled it, talked to the neighbor, handled it beautifully. Interestingly enough, we had 5 guests staying for dinner, and 4 of them from different country. And they were amazed how this man walked into our home, talked to me with such a caring concern for what was going on. They aren't used to that in the country they came from. So it makes me more appreciative than ever being in this town. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, from police, Shays, everybody, and the cleanup the next day, if you went down to the beach the next morning at a reasonable hour, it was cleaned, it looked great. So kudos to all involved, from the top all the way down. It was excellent. So I would just, like to say, and it was nice that we had good weather, a lot of green flag alerts on my phone. I'm always happy to see those, so that was very encouraging. So I will say, the question was mentioned about, sharing good news. I think we're getting an update on economic development coming up real soon, and there are a lot of good things that continue to happen in this town. We are more than just a tourist town, a beach town. You hear us talk about it, but I don't think it makes it to the top of these meetings enough. We mentioned Gull Lake Marine tonight, purchased that marina, is going to keep it a working marina, and that was a project for years on end. We talked about Grace, or what used to be Albemarle or Wyckoff, adding jobs, expanding their plant, Revere, adding jobs, schools. I get asked a lot of questions, what's the city doing with all those piles of dirt? And I get to say it's not us, but it's exciting to finally see that happen, because what attracts people to our city to want to live here, work here, bring your kids here is good fields. And guess what? We adults all of us, they aren't even in school, still use the tennis courts, the pickleball courts, and all that good stuff. So it's all good stuff that helps the community. So there is a lot of good stuff that goes on. I will mention, had a chance to we took the UNC, our Chapel Hill students who are still working on their short-term rental project, and we took them to Lansing to meet with Senator Nesbitt and a few others to hear about the House bill to regulate short-term rentals. Got to meet with the Michigan Municipal League, Realtors, so a lot of different groups to let them see from a student's perspective how things work at the Capitol. I will give Nesbitt credit. He spent a lot of time with us, showed the students around, very gracious. So he's just saying, your senator hard at work, but he spent time with these students, really tried to show them how policy is shaped at the state level. He also mentioned Ryan Hill. He said, you're using that housing consultant, Ryan Kilpatrick. So Ryan's known, which I knew was very positive with Ryan's work. So good to know. So on that note, I will say again, just thanks to staff, and I'm glad everybody had a good holiday weekend, and glad it was safe. So I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Have a great night.